Bill, Steel City Spectacular. Here we are on the final day. This is Sunday. What is it? The 17th, August 17th. Uh, it's been a hell of a weekend. What did we get up to?
What didn't we get up to, Zach? What didn't we get up to? Well, I ended up putting a vintage deck together and then forgetting it at home while I was packing. So I ended up just playing a lot more Legacy than anticipated, and
Yep.
that's okay. Got in some reps, understood some things. What did you get into?
Okay, so I
yeah,
probably
tell
should
us.
have left my vintage deck at home. I went and tried to play the Jeskai Loris PO deck and just got locked out in 2 games. Realized that there was a event for a Legacy starting up at noon. I had enough time to sign up for that, so I decided to do that and went 2, 3, and 1. Switching over to Reanimator. I think after this weekend, I'm back to Cephalid Breakfast, and I think I'm going to be back to Cephalid Breakfast for. That's what I learned this weekend. I'm probably going to be trying to do that combo for Eternal Weekend, both for Pittsburgh in 2 months.
Breakfast
And then,
was it breakfast or Nadu that won the 2K?
I believe it was. I believe it was breakfast. It was breakfast. Yeah, I'm sure.
I understand they're both Nadu, but you know what I was
Yeah,
asking.
the 2K that tournament that I went 3, 2, and 1 was won by a breakfast player. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from the weekend was how much different online and paper actually is. A lot of players that are coming and playing in paper are doing so and playing a lot of cards that otherwise are just completely out of the top tier Legacy metagame. I ran into a lot of decks that were just like you wouldn't consider these as like the viable options in this.
Yeah. This episode of Eternal Durdles is sponsored by CardMill, the first automated scanner and sorter built specifically for trading card game players. With its intentionally compact design, CardMill uses AI-powered recognition to identify each card and sync inventory with real-time pricing, batching up to 300 cards at a time by name, set, color, or type. Collection data is securely stored in the CardMill network, giving players full access to their cards through an easy-to-use web portal. CardMill supports Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Flesh and Blood, Disney Lorcana, Star Wars Unlimited, and many more to come. Created by software engineer and longtime Magic the Gathering player Jonathan Dumanis, CardMill launches on July 22nd on Kickstarter with early bird pricing starting at $350. Backers receive lifetime access to all software updates and new features. Go to cardmill.com to learn more and reserve your path to the future of card sorting. I ran into an Omnitel.
Like a lot of sorcery speed 3-drop type stuff coming at me this weekend, and it's like the games are over before we get here in any like tier 1 section of the meta. Now the top tables tell a different story. The top tables do coincide with what was expected for like what has been winning, which is like the Nadu variants, Breakfast, whatever, Reanimator, and Mystic Forge. So it's like the metagame is pretty clear at what you're going to run into at the top tables. But when you're coming in and playing in the early rounds of the event, or even the mid rounds of the event, you're running into a lot of players that are actually playing the stuff that they want to come in to play in paper. Which to be fair, like I am one of those players. Like
for sure,
I'm one of those players that's like that wants to play the stuff that they want to in paper and trying to make it work. But there's a lot of that in paper, which you just don't see nearly as much of online. Like Oops is just non-existent in paper, at least in this event. Not a single one. Whereas like I ran into a lot of planeswalkers this weekend that I haven't seen in months.
Yeah. How many Jaces have you seen?
I didn't see any Jaces, but I did see like a lot of Teferis outside of breakfast, just mid-range control
value
shells.
Teferi.
Yeah, value Teferis. I also ran into like a lot of like fourth Aerolingus was like just very, but like fourth Aerolingus and like Jeskai control stuff.
Yeah.
Like players just
it's like a viable deck, but like maybe not a tier 1 deck.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Well, it is viable in that like players are going to show up with it. Like I ran into it against it's not like I ran into one player. I ended up running into one player who was doing that sort of thing twice. We actually faced each other in two different events. Like that was just coincidental.
Yeah.
But like I ran into a Jeskai fourth Aerolingus style something against 3 different opponents, and like both in the winners and losers brackets in these events. So.
You also played against Infect at one point?
I played against Infect at one point, which was off the beaten path. I played against like Enchantress. I played, it's like just stuff that if people have it, they're going to play it. And if that thing just happens to not be top tier, they're still going to come out and play it. And then what we were talking about last episode with Grim Monoliths, like the players who have Grim Monoliths are just going to get, and Mystic Forge was super popular. I ran into Mystic Forge a ton. I think I played against it 5 times over the course of the weekend. And I only won one against it once. It turns out I was playing 3 Null Rod on the board, and that wasn't enough because their plan against Null Rod is
they just have plans. Yeah.
Either they go Tezzeret, get a thing, and deal with the Null Rod, or they can go Karn plus on the Null Rod and then Kozilek command it. So I found that like even with 3 Null Rod, I was relatively anemic.
Yeah.
I had a plan against the deck, but it still just wasn't enough. The deck is just like very, very, very busted.
Yeah. I even was able to get out a null rod against one of the decks. And so my argument for your deck is like, you'll get out a null rod and then give them time.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I wasn't trying to give them time. You know, I was playing Reanimator and I got out a null rod and my opponent put out a Mystic Forge and eventually found a portable hole, got rid of it.
Mystic Forge don't give a fuck.
Yeah. So that was, you know, even you know, the argument against Phil's deck is like, you're going to give them time. I wasn't even giving them time. I was going to go off the next turn, and it still just was not going to happen.
Yeah, the deck is just one of the better decks in the format, and I do think that the winner's metagame, if you were to quantify it down, you could probably boil the format down to 3 decks, as like, these are the decks that are going to win the event and therefore the decks to beat. So either play them or play something that can beat them. I don't think that there's anything that can beat them. I think it's
I'm going to argue 4 decks, but go on.
I think it's Mystic Forge, Breakfast, and Reanimator. And then right underneath is Dimir Tempo.
Yeah.
I think Dimir Tempo is just a worse Reanimator in this field, because the 2 decks that you need to beat are both super fast combo, like over the top combo decks, in which case you want to be Reanimator.
The Tempo deck is good against the Reanimator deck, and that's where it kind of survives. That's the whole point of like the tiers, right? Tier 1 is like out and out the best thing to be doing in the format. Tier 2 generally is the thing that is going to be preying on the tier 1 decks, right? So that makes perfect sense there.
Yeah. So I think it's like 3 plus 1, like you were saying, is like the tier, and then underneath that, also like something else that shows up in paper a lot more than would show up online is Painter.
Yep.
They're just like people who love playing Painter, so you just run into Painter a bunch.
No oops. I didn't see any. I haven't seen any oops in the room.
That's also what I mean. It's like online, you can run against oops like very consistently, almost every league, maybe multiple times a league, and then you come in paper, and it's like people just don't travel to come out and play oops. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So like, oops shouldn't be something that is allowed in the format for like what it does as an experience.
Gentleman's agreement, if you will.
It also just doesn't show up because people do like it's like, so we were having a conversation at dinner one of the nights we were here, where we were talking about like the top ranked 100 movies that like came out, where the New York Times did a thing where it was like ranking the top 100 movies of the last quarter century or whatever, and a lot of the movies that ended up showing up at the top tiers of what people like, of the pool of people in the space that they had vote, and then they averaged it all together to figure out what their actual ranking was. And a lot of the ranking ended up being movies that were before like
the pandemic,
before the pandemic and streaming picked up. And so then they were trying to figure out, they were like, why is it that everybody trended towards like the front half of the quarter of the century as opposed to like the back half, where there have been a ton of great movies. And they were saying that a lot of, when they asked for feedback on it, they were saying, oh, well, I remember going and blah, blah, blah to the cinema and doing something. And so it was the experience of going to see the movie as well as the movie itself. So like baked into that was the experience of seeing it and what it felt like to be there with people watching the thing. And so that feels better for people intrinsically when they're looking back on it than like watching something where it's just streaming at home. Yeah. And I think that applies to oops, where it's like, if you're going to an event, if you play oops,
you're like, experience.
You're there for you're sort of compromising the experience by doing that. At least that's what it seems like here, because oops would have been fine in this room. Like, it would have done well. Like, if you're playing against like a bunch of Forge or a bunch of Breakfast, like, yeah, you have to deal with Fairy Macabre, and that's sort of where it's going to be at. But nobody traveled to want to do that. So I think you could get away with, in paper events, like you could get away
hedging some of those slots.
If you needed slots against other things, specifically against Mystic Forge, Reanimator, Nadu, Breakfast, and then probably Tempo. So like think about Kaido or Bowmaster. The one thing that is salient across is if you aren't on Ancient Tomb, you're on Tamiyo. And the card I ran into most this weekend was just Tamiyo. Every single list is playing Tamiyo, regardless of your archetype. If you're not on Ancient Tomb and Urza Saga, you're on Tamiyo. So like, you just have to have a plan for that.
Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old-school Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 Trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or 500 euros, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the legacy community. Now back to the show.
I think right now, like, if you're not playing Tamiyo and you're not playing Thoughtseize, you better be playing something that ends the game immediately, like Mystic Forge.
Yeah.
and that's kind of where the format is right now. Like it's a Tamiyo format for the most part. Thoughtseize helps you keep the Tamiyo on the board if you're gonna do it in the first couple of turns.
Right? Thougeize is also very good because all of the top decks are looking to do something that ostensibly ends the game on turn 2.
Yeah.
Whether it's Breakfast, whether it's Mystic Forge putting in a 2-drop, a 4 mana spell on turn 2, or it's Entomb Reanimate. Like either all of these things are trying to do something on turn 2 that ends the game. So like a Thoughtseize just to try and pick the hole in that spot to at least get the game to the 3rd and 4th turns is also part of why like Thoughtseize stock is so high. But then it also sort of presses out anything that isn't either super redundant or like sort of can go over the top of a Thoughtseize. You know what I mean?
So to tie all this up in a bow, metagame report for the weekend is basically like we have those 4 decks to worry about. I'm off Reanimator. I'm not feeling it.
He's off of it.
And it looks like you're still on Miracles.
Yeah, of course.
So let's talk about the rest of this event, right? So I got invited out to the 16-person creator CEDH event. I brought Anya Falconwrath. I'll include a link for that version of the deck. I won my first pod. I played against TK, Shauna, who's a Twitch streamer, and Roland Chang, a friend of the show. TK, friend of the show as well. But I was able to Ward Gorger everybody out. We had like a really intense.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I heard this secondhand. So Zach, I'm gonna tell the story as Zach said it to me as I remember it, and then he'll qualify if I said it correctly.
Sure.
That there was a moment where Zach went for the World Gorger combo, and TK had a bounce spell and decided to bounce the Animate Dead before it could attach to the World Gorger, so he couldn't do anything. And the alternative was he could have just bounced the World Gorger with the trigger on the stack and exiled Zach's whole board and eliminated him for the game.
I was sweating. I was like, oh no, everything I have is gonna. And he's like, no, I'm doing the Animate Dead. And I was like, yeah. He said what he said.
And then instead of Zach getting his entire board exiled and being out of contention, he ended up beating 2.
Well, so what happened was the next thing that happened was I played a land because I only had one mana open. I played a land and I played the World Gorger dragon combo again with the Reanimate.
Right? Animated again.
And that was countered as well. Then we go to TK's turn. TK tried to go off 3 separate ways.
Impressive.
And really had it all 3 ways, right?
Well, so luckily, just for clarity, so you were on Anya. What were the other players on? Roland was on Cranko.
Malcolm and the like frilled lizard guy, blue red like control deck. I want to say I forget what that
Malcolm
thing.
And Crom?
Cletus. No, it's like it's a red guy, just red.
Okay.
And then Roland was on Cranko. Roland was actually kind of a savage because let me go through the rest of this like thing because we're about to when we get back to me the game will be over. Spoiler alert, I won my pod. You already heard this, right? So we go to and TK is on that like Esper
I thought you just said he was on blue red.
No,
Blue
red. He was on the Esper like guy that reanimates things when they get discarded. That makes a 4/4.
It's black. It's black white, right?
It's black white, but it has a blue activation. So he's on an Esper deck. And so he had already gone through my deck with a Praetor's Grasp.
Yeah, that feels bad.
And I was like, oh no, like if he gets the extra pate in my yard, I'm done.
Well, Praetor's Grasp. Oh, it's any card.
Yeah. So I was like, if he gets the extra pay, I'm gonna get to do my thing, but I'm not gonna get to do the World Gorger thing, right? I have to play the fair plan. And we didn't, it's face down, so we don't know what he got. So he reveals that he's gotten a Lion's Eye Diamond and plays it, and I'm like, oh, thank God, right? And then he goes to
Lion's Eye Diamond's very good with his.
He discards his whole hand, gets a Razakath, puts that in the board, and he's got a few creatures out, so he can sack them, pay 2 life, sack them, and go get cards, right? So this allows him to combo off 3 separate times. He tries to necromancy my World Gorger Dragon, which I don't know what that's going to do for him, but it can't be good.
Well, it gives him infinite mana, right? It's
infinite mana, but that will get his Razakath off the board forever.
Why is that?
Because it exiles it, right? It's a token. So I was like, okay, like I'm fine with that happening. Shauna was like, no, I'm not fine with that happening. Countered it. Okay, cool. So then he tries to go off again. I forget how he cast like a demonic tutor or something like that.
I hear that card's good.
Yeah. He cast something that was like, if this happens, this is also he cast demonic consultation. And was like threatening like, I'll just go get, I'll sack a creature and go get Thassa's Oracle. I have the mana to do this, right? So Shauna also countered that. Amazing. Then he cast Tainted Pact.
So these all cards sound sense just like absolutely busted in there.
Yeah. Shauna copied like twin cast Tainted Pact, got the Tainted Pact first. He was out of mana. She dazed him. She lost a stack of cards like that thick, right? It goes to her turn. TK is at 14 life. Roland is like doing this crazy math. He's got like 4 cards in hand, counting. He makes a bunch of guys with Krenko. He's also got Mass Hysteria out, so everything has haste. Taps Krenko, he's got like 14, like 12 guys out. Casts Battle Hen, gets a bunch of mana. Casts Simian Spirit Guide, hard cast Simian Spirit Guide, attacks TK for 14, which is what his life is at, to kill him. And I'm like, okay, are you done? He's like, yep. I had previously gone for a Dance of the Dead, so I had another win con in my hand. And I was like, I think the coast is clear here. TK's out. Roland doesn't have any interaction. I think his hand's empty. And Shauna's hand's empty. Dance of the Dead. So I got to get infinite mana. I cycled through my entire deck, and you can do that by discard. You basically cycle through your entire deck and reshuffle when you discard Ulamog. So you have infinite mana and pretty much every card in your deck. And then eventually I just cast Avacyn's Judgment for X. Or I can put with the infinite mana, I can put a Glinthorn Buccaneer into play, and every card I discard deals 1 damage to each player. So I was able to win that way. So then we go into the finals, which is me, Ian, aka comedian, Zabricus, and Sam Black. Literal murderers row of like actual CDH players.
And what's on the line is the Library of Alexandria, which should be unbanned in Legacy, by the way.
So my turn 1, I play a snow-covered swamp. Sam's turn 1, he plays a snow-covered island. Both Ice Age snow-covered islands. Well played. Ian mulligan to 5. Okay. Like a maniac. He was just like, I mulligan to 4 in my last game. I'm mulligan to 5
I don't
game,
give a shit.
And then Zabricus puts out like a Kennen on like turn 2 or something like that, right? I go to my turn 2. I play the Mount Doom, right? Tap Mount Doom. I play a Dothy Voidwalker, thinking like it's kind of hate, kind of protecting myself here, and pass. Sam plays something, pass. Ian, I think, didn't make a land drop, maybe, and passes.
He was on 4 cards.
And then Zabricus goes, okay, I'm gonna play I think she played like a Mox Chrome.
A Mox Chrome. I like that way. I like that better.
Mox,
I like Mox Chrome better.
Chrome Mox, and then played.
Why isn't it called Mox Chrome?
Yeah, right. Played Basalt Monolith. Now she's got infinite mana with the Basalt Monolith. Basalt Monolith, right? Basalt Monolith. Look, man, I'm just saying it the way I say it. So then she gets infinite mana and puts out Agatha's Cauldron.
Who knows what that
Cauldron does? Apparently, it makes all of your activated abilities become colorless.
Yeah,
it gains those abilities.
Way too much.
So she got to go through her entire deck and get enough mana to eventually put out Sisay, and then got an infinite combo with Sisay because she could search up basically any creature in her deck and put into play. And the game ended with Mount Doom, which I didn't realize had extra text on it. I just thought it had like Wrath of God, but everything but like one legendary in play or something like that. I've never really read the card. I just happen to have it in my deck because it makes black and red mana. It's a Badlands, right? So I'm like, how does that win? And she's like, the second line of text. I'm like, I have read right over that every single time I've seen that card. What's great is that's another card that I can go infinite with in the World Order deck. So there is that too. But yeah, so I did not win the Library of Alexandria, but I got close. I think a lot
closer than we thought you were going to get with Anya Falconwrath.
Big shout out to Koval, who I've said before coaches the channel. When we had our coaching session this week, I did it for competitive stuff, and I was talking to him about CEDH and stuff, and getting ready for that. And he let me know, and I don't think I had this was made clear to me, that you get seeding in the pod based on how many times you shared about this event on social media. And I had been doing it sporadically, just tagging out Excalibur games and stuff like that to make sure that I was doing my due diligence as a content creator, and I was invited to this thing to so I went to overdrive after he told me that, and posted a whole bunch of stuff to just day blogging, short day blogging the event and stuff. And of course I got top seed in our pod, right, that I went into with TK, Shauna, and Roland. So big shout out to Brian Koval for hooking me up with that very important piece of information.
The turn that he won was the first first turn of the turn cycle.
Yeah. So I mean, as it's going to be if you go first, but I got that extra turn that nobody else got. That's actually, so if you're not a CEDH person, going first in CEDH is super big because you get to draw your 8th card.
Draw your first card.
Yeah, you draw your first card, and you basically are a turn ahead of everybody else.
It's such a broken thing that you get to draw your card no matter your seat.
They say
only the person in fourth turn order should get to draw.
Apparently the math bears out that you're 50% more likely to win if you go first.
Totally, of course.
And that bears out in the pod because Zabricus was first in her pod. I was first in my pod. Sam and Comedian were not.
It's the same thing in chess when you move first as white. White just inherently has the advantage, wins more games percentage-wise in a vacuum in the dark.
Yeah. Since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe to the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Dodos on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreon supporters get an ad-free RSS feed. You can even join our deck donation tier to get your very own episode.
Join the Durdle Maniacs at patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Now back to the show.
So, like, it's the same thing. Like, who knew being on the play was better?
Who knew?
Who would have figured that out?
So then we go to the next day. That's Saturday. We play in the Legacy event. I go 0-3 and drop and immediately just go, I'm going to go look for cards. I'm just going to go through the bulk bin. I've been looking for one of these for a while, a Richard Garfield PhD. I didn't want to pay like retail for it. I don't know what retail for this thing is, but I got it for 50 cents. I want to make like kind of a new fun format with this where I make a deck for this and everyone has this in play.
It might be the largest discrepancy between a regular version and a foil version, because there are foil versions in the case that I saw for like 500. Now I don't know if there was like something else that was special about them, but like when he pulled this out of the thing, I was like, "You bought a Richard Garfield? That's a lot of money, dude." And he's like, "What are you talking about? It was in the bulk bin for 50 cents." I was like, "What? I saw one in the case. I guess it was because it was foil. I saw it in these cases out here for 500." And I was like, unless there's like it's Richard Garfield and it's foil and it's signed or something.
It's a $3 card normally. If it's foil, let's find out here. The foil version, not listed here apparently. I guarantee the foil version's like $400, $500.
So that's what it was in the case. I mean, I guess there could have been something else about them where it was like, maybe signed by Garfield or something. But I don't know.
Yeah.
There were a couple of cool oddities out that were out in these cases. There was a beta, I think it was beta Black Lotus that was signed by Chris Rush twice.
Yeah.
For some reason, somebody had a Chris Rush signed Black Lotus, and then I guess maybe somebody else had it signed again. Who knows? There was every time you come to these events, nobody ever gets it, but there's been a floating Black Lotus that was signed by both Chris Rush and Richard Garfield. That's just like been floating around in the case. Like I feel like I see it every year coming into these places. Alter game, not very good.
Nah, I mean, you got to hope that, we got to make sure that we tell these guys, like, bring your altars, because that's a thing, like, you might make a couple bucks on altars as a vendor at these events. Obviously, MagicCon's the place that we've been finding the best.
Catering to the casuals, that's apparently who I am.
Other things we talked about this weekend, Nolan was talking to us about value vintage. I think that's something we might pick up on relatively soon. We need to get premiere content going as well.
Yeah. So the thing that we want to do after this event, since the legacy is going to be static for the next 6 months or whatever until the next BNR post EWs, is we want to start exploring what premiere decks might look like. So if you are somebody who is interested in exploring that format and have ideas for different deck lists, like I'm not going to come up with the best Green Sun Zenith, deck list in Premiere. I'm not going to come up with
Phil, what is Premiere? So for the people who are just finding out about this.
Premiere is the format that we've been sort of like theory crafting of like what would Legacy look like if the only cards that were legal were cards that went through Standard. So not Commander product, not Modern Horizon stuff, just like, if
it had to be legal in a Standard Premiere set.
Yeah, right? and that's where it comes from. As just like sort of a thought experiment for like pre-modern we have gotten into, and it's like awesome and it's very good, and we sort of got a little bit of inspiration talking about Heritage, and Heritage is just like no Universes Beyond sets, but it still has everything else.
And what's cool about this format is that on top of the fact that it's just another theory idea, it'll be fun to do some community events with it, but we can talk to other creators that are like, let's talk to Strass Daddy and have him make a Premiere deck. We can bring people on and talk about like, hey, here's a half hour about Premiere, and do like, kind of like weekly content where we ask another creator like, hey, build a deck in this format, and then Phil and I will try and jam it. Either in paper or on Magic Online.
It's certainly not going to be, I think like a good target for it is something that's, adjacent to pre-modern, it's a different style.
We have like community events and stuff like that.
Yeah, where it is a format that changes, new cards come in because they are making Premiere sets and whatever. It's not getting rid of Universes Beyond if it goes through Premiere, but like the idea is that rather than cards that arbitrarily break a format, what it actually does is we know that they will have at least tested things for 1v1, rather than putting it into Commander product where it's aimed at 4-player and then is arbitrarily more powerful in 1v1, and then it sort of commandeers what Legacy can tolerate, and sort of shrinks the pool, because then, like, if you look at every deck in Legacy, it's like all of the cards that aren't, the blue suite that you need. It's Commander product and it's Modern Horizon stuff. Nothing really from Standard breaks through.
Well, imagine just any deck right now that you're seeing in Legacy, and then take out those cards, right? Like, there's no One Ring, there's no Tamiyo, there's no Murktide Regent, right? So you're going to get a completely different format that still gets to play Brainstorm, Force of Will, and you can still play a lot of those. Basically, you get to look at what would Legacy look like before the Modern Horizon sets came out, right?
Before capitalism crushed it.
Before it became like really a turn 2, turn 3 combo format, that everything got super truncated, and days of stock went way up. Like, Days was good. Days of stock went way up over the past like 5 years. And so I think if we just try this and we see like, hey, maybe Days is a little bit weaker now, maybe people start playing Delver of Secrets again. Wild.
Yeah, I think like it's also like, we're still going to play Legacy. We obviously love Legacy, but I think like it's nice to, like, every time we play pre-modern, it's sort of like this reinvigoration. But we also know that like pre-modern is not the same nostalgic dopamine hit for all the players that play Legacy that watch the channel. And so we were like, what is something for the players that aren't really drawn to pre-modern as much, still want to play Legacy, still want new cards to come in, new toys to play with. And we figured out that like maybe Premier is an option to go down. And so we're interested in feedback on that, both in what you think about how to like get it like going, like what would be interesting, but then also like what would deck lists look like? Like we have endeavored in our own ideas of like what deck lists might look like, but how you would go. It's such a wide thought experiment, because I don't know what any decks would really look like if it didn't have all these Commander and Modern Horizons product that have otherwise dominated the Legacy scene for what has it been? 6 years, 7 years at this point.
I mean, the other thing is like we got some really good feedback from people. I mean, we just had somebody come over right before we started recording and was like, "Hey, I really appreciate the pre-modern content. You guys got me into pre-modern," and that's kind of the other focus of the show lately. Is especially when the Legacy format becomes somewhat stagnant. It's not that it's like we don't want to play Legacy, but like, what can you say about a format that's going to be exactly what it is for a couple months? So for the summer, we kind of took a mental break from just saying like, okay, this is Legacy again, like talking about Reanimator every weekend or every like 4 episodes a week. You got to come up with something else, right? And doing the pre-modern content, delving into sorcery here and there, showing people that are into the kind of format the kind of content that we make and the kind of Magic that we like to play, that kind of old school feeling. Legacy, the Legacy wheelhouse, I like to call it, of players that are interested in cards with great art. That old school Magic vibe. A lot of the people who play Legacy are there partially for the nostalgia of the cards that they played as a kid.
Yeah, there's also a very distinct thing that pre-modern, I noticed, and why I've enjoyed pre-modern isn't necessarily because I'm drawn to any of the top decks or I'm drawn to the nostalgia of it. Like the nostalgia hit doesn't hit quite the same for me when it comes to pre-modern. But the thing that I like about pre-modern that does feel nostalgic is the feeling of possibility, where you can think of an idea and then like actually try and build and execute it in a way that feels like it's possible. Now, whether or not it is a different story. But when you play the games, you're like, I feel like this could be a thing. Like, I'm working on this project, this brew or whatever. It feels like it could
the ability to brew.
Legacy, that's just sort of obsoleted. Like, the brewing that you can do is like, oh, maybe you did a tech in an already developed.
We talked about the walls of the format. They're very closed in.
They're closed in, if not touching. And I think that like Legacy doesn't really allow for that unless your name is Marcus. And I think that for
we look at pre-modern sorcery is another, like, delving into new card games is another great way to like get that mental stim, right? Like, where you can be like, okay, like this isn't solved yet, like I can mess around and play with this game. I was able to do well at a sorcery event because I kind of brewed an off meta deck, and 30 years of competitive Magic playing does translate over into other games, and it's kind of fun to see if you can if you can dominate in a completely different game, you know, and do that, that's like Overpower is the same way. Is like just getting to look at all these new cards, like going through a collection and seeing like brand new cards and coming up with possibilities, learning the intricacies of another card game is sort of fun too. And that's why I've been kind of delving into that stuff occasionally. But pre-modern is a perfect example of like it's the exact same rules, but a completely different playground.
And so we think that like maybe Premiere could be that playground for people who just like want a refresher, but like still want to engage with Legacy, but in a way that isn't, you know, the tiresome redundancy of like here are the top 3 decks and that's like what you're going to encounter, and the way that you beat them is just by being one of the other 2.
Well, with that said, Steel City Spectacular, a complete success. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what I want to play next. And Phil, did you learn anything?
Yeah, I'm probably just going to play Counterbalance.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button.
You can also support us on patreon.com/eternaldurdles, which now offers the new Deck Donation tier.
During July, the Deck Donation patrons will get a 2-for-1 special where both Phil and I will run your deck through a league.
I'll play literally whatever you want.
So brew your spiciest or stock us up with a stock list.
I'll literally play whatever you want.
Thanks for watching.